You know, I've been thinking a lot lately about where it all started. Not the red carpets or the award shows, but the real beginning, the grit, the grind, the moments that carved you out like a nut. I'm Peter Dinklage, and today I want to share something with you that I haven't talked about much publicly. It's a story from my early days, back when the world didn't know my name, and honestly, I wasn't sure if it ever would. The title? The Day I Couldn't Afford to Eat. Yeah, it sounds dramatic, but let me tell you, it was real. And if you'll stick with me through this, I promise it'll hit you in a way that sticks, because we've all had those days, or at least days that feel like the edge of the abyss. Let's go back to the early 90s. I was in my 20s, fresh out of Bennington College, armed with a degree in drama and a fire in my belly to make it as an actor. But New York City, it's a beast. It chews up dreamers and spits them out onto the sidewalks, covered in the grime of 1,000 failed auditions. I'd moved there with stars in my eyes, thinking my talent, whatever that was, would be enough. Ha! It doesn't fill your stomach. I was living in a tiny, roach-infested apartment in Brooklyn, the kind where the walls are so thin you can hear your neighbors' arguments like they're happening in your own living room. The rent was $400 a month, which back then felt like a fortune, especially when my bank account hovered around zero. I'd taken whatever jobs I couldn't scrape by. Data entry gigs, waiting tables, though that didn't last long because, let's face it, with my height, some places didn't think I fit the image. Dwarfism isn't just a physical thing, it's a lens through which the world sees you, and sometimes it blurs everything into rejection. I'd audition for roles, pouring my soul into monologues from Shakespeare or Ibsen, only to hear, "You're great, but you know." Yeah, I knew. So I'd pound the pavement handing out resumes, but the callbacks were few and far between. My savings from college, gone in a couple of months. Student loans looming like storm clouds, and food that became a luxury. It started small, the poverty, skipping breakfast here, a coffee instead of lunch there. But it snowballed. I remember waking up one morning, must have been late fall, because the air had that crisp bite to it, the kind that seeps through cracked windows and chills you to the bone. My stomach was growling, not the polite rumble, but a deep, insistent ache, like a wild animal clawing from the inside. I'd gone to bed the night before with just a handful of stale crackers and some peanut butter scraped from the bottom of a jar. No dinner, and now, morning light filtering through the dirty blinds, I realized I had nothing left. Zilch! Checked my fridge, a half-empty bottle of mustard, some wilted lettuce that smelled like regret, and a single egg that I'd been saving like it was gold. But an egg? That's not a meal! That's a tease! I sat on the edge of my bed, a lumpy mattress on the floor really, and stared at the wall. The paint was peeling in spots, revealing layers of old lies beneath, like archaeological digs of failure. The smell in the room was a mix of damp mildew from the leaking ceiling and the faint, sour tang of unwashed clothes piled in the corner. I hadn't done laundry in weeks because corners full of laundromat were corners I could use for a slice of pizza. My head throbbed from hunger, that fuzzy headache that makes everything feel distant, like you're watching your life through fogged glass. I thought about calling my parents back in New Jersey. They'd always been supportive. My mom a teacher, my dad an insurance salesman, but pride stopped me. Pride, that stubborn bastard. I'm an adult, I told myself. I chose this path. I can handle it, but could I? I forced myself to get up, splash cold water on my face from the sink that dripped incessantly, a rhythmic plink plink that echoed my emptying resolve. Dressed in my least worn shirt and jeans, the ones with holes at the knees from too many subway rides and sidewalk treks outside the Brooklyn streets were alive. Horns blaring from yellow cabs, the sizzle of street vendors firing up their grills. Oh God, the smells. Bacon frying, fresh bagels toasting, coffee brewing so strong it punched you in the nose. My mouth watered, betraying me. People hurried by, briefcases in hand, sipping from paper cups, oblivious to the war raging in my gut. I walked aimlessly at first, telling myself I was heading to an audition, but really, I was just moving. By midday, the despair set in hard. I'd stopped at a deli on Flatbush Avenue, the kind with steamed-up windows and a bell that jingled cheerfully when you entered. The air inside was thick with the aroma of pastrami, rye bread, pickles, sensory overload. I lingered by the counter, pretending to browse the menu, but my wallet was empty except for a crumpled receipt and a few pennies. The owner, a burly guy with a mustache like a broom, eyed me suspiciously. "You ordering or what?" He grunted. I mumbled something about just looking and slunk out, cheeks burning with shame. Outside, I leaned against a lamppost, the cold metal biting through my thin jacket. Tears pricked my eyes, not from sadness, but from sheer exhaustion. My body was shutting down, my mind racing with questions. Why am I doing this? Is acting worth starving for? I thought of all the no's I'd heard, the agents who wouldn't sign me because I didn't fit the mold. Dwarfism made me unique, sure, but in Hollywood's eyes, it made me uncastable. Or so it seemed. In that moment, leaning there, the world blurred. Cars whooshed by, their exhaust fumes mixing with the distant roar of a subway train rumbling underground. My stomach cramped, a sharp twist that doubled me over. I straightened up, breathing deep, and remembered a line from Camus. Yeah, I was into existential stuff back then, devouring books in the library to escape my reality. In the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me there lay an invincible summer. But where was my summer? All I felt was winter, endless and biting. Pride versus desperation. That was the battle. Pride said, don't beg. Don't admit defeat. Desperation whispered, you need help or you'll collapse. I'd never asked for handouts. My family raised me to be independent, to fight for what I wanted. But fighting on an empty stomach? That's a losing game. I wandered into a park. Prospect Park, I think, seeking some quiet amid the chaos. The leaves were turning, crunching underfoot with that dry autumn snap. Benches lined the paths, occupied by joggers catching their breath or old men feeding pigeons. I sat on one, far from the others, and watched the birds peck at crumbs. Even they were eating better than me. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of roasting chestnuts from a vendor nearby. Sweet, nutty, irresistible. My hand shook as I pulled out my phone, a beat-up flip phone back then, and scrolled through contacts. Friends from college? They were struggling too. My brother? No, he had his own life. Finally, I landed on a name, an older professor from Bennington, someone who believed in me when others didn't. But calling him, that meant admitting failure. The humiliation burned in my throat like acid as the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the grass. I hit a wall. Literal despair. I remember curling up on that bench, knees to chest, trying to ignore the gnawing void inside. People walked by, their footsteps a muffled drumbeat on the path. Laughter from a group of kids playing frisbee floated over, mocking my isolation. My mind spiraled. What if I give up? Go back home, get a real job at that dream, a stage, the screen. It was all I had. Without it, who was I? Just a short guy from Jersey with big ideas. Nietzsche popped into my head then, that mad philosopher. He who has a why to live can bear almost any. How? My why was acting, telling stories that mattered, proving that size doesn't define talent, but the how was killing me. Oh, that's when the kindness happened. Small, unexpected, like a crack of light in a dark room. An older woman approached the bench, her coat bundled tight against the chill. She had a paper bag in hand, steam rising from it, fresh pretzels. I could smell the salt and dough from yards away. She sat down a few feet from me, unwrapping one, and took a bite. The crunch echoed. I must have looked pathetic, staring like a stray dog because she glanced over and smiled, not pityingly, but warmly. Rough day, she asked, her voice accented. Maybe Eastern European. I nodded, too embarrassed to speak. She tore off a piece of her pretzel and held it out. Here, you look like you needed this more than I do. Pride screamed, no! But desperation won. I took it, mumbling, thanks, and bit in. Warm, chewy, salty. Heaven exploded in my mouth. It was just a bite, but it felt like salvation. We talked then, or rather, she did. Told me about her old struggles immigrating here, working 2 jobs, raising kids alone. Life tests us, she said, to see if we're worthy of the good parts. No judgment, just shared humanity. She gave me the rest of the pretzel and even slipped me a $5 bill from her purse. Buy something warm, she insisted. I tried to refuse, but she waved it off. Kindness isn't a debt, it's a chain. Pass it on when you can. That act, it wasn't much, but it shattered something in me. The humiliation of accepting help faded into gratitude. I ate the pretzel slowly, savoring every morsel, the warmth spreading through my body like a hug. The park sounds softened, birds chirping, leaves rustling, distant traffic, a low hum. For the first time that day, I felt seen, not as a failure, not as the dwarf, but as a person in need. It reignited reignited a spark. I stood up, dusted off my jeans, and headed to a nearby diner with that $5. Ordered a bowl of soup tomato, thick and hearty, steam rising with hints of basil and garlic. As I sipped it, spoon clinking against the bowl, I reflected. Emerson once wrote, "The only person you are destined to become is the person you decide to be." That day, I decided no more quitting. The hunger had hollowed me out, but it also cleared the clutter. I saw clearly my dream was worth the fight, worth the lows, because without them, the highs mean nothing. From there, transformation crept in, not overnight, but steadily. I called that professor the next day, swallowed my pride, and he hooked me up with a small theater gig understudy in an off-Broadway play. Paid peanuts, but it was something. Meals became sporadic still, but I learned to hustle, bartering acting lessons for food, crashing on friends' couches. The despair faded as resilience built. I auditioned relentlessly, landing bits here and there, a commercial, a indie film. Each yes was fuel from that rock-bottom day. Years later, when Game of Thrones came along and Tyrion Lannister became my breakout, well, that hungry kid on the bench, he's still in me. Success tastes sweeter because of the starvation. The awards, the acclaim, they're not the point. It's the journey. Poverty teaching humility, despair forging strength, kindness reminding us we're connected, and transformation proving we can rush. So, if you're out there, stomach empty, dreams flickering, hold on. Your lowest point, it's fertilizer for growth. Be grateful for the struggles. They feed the rise. And remember, pass on the kindness. It's the chain that links us all. Thanks for listening. I'm Peter Dinklage, and this is my story. What's your